Hello and welcome to part one of Canadian Cabin. So Canadian Cabin, block-in day. This is part one of a three-part series. So we covered the whole canvas with thin value colors. So I go through those mixtures with the overhead step by step. Start and stop anytime you want to catch up or to step back and admire your painting. We're painting from photographs, and I mean it's good to have a big screen, a computer screen and stuff like that to paint from, but it's not as good as being outside painting. So whenever you have the chance, paint from life. And even like now, we're starting to go into winter, the 1st of December. We do live portraits here in my studio on Thursday nights. And it's just a way to just try to get your brain around interpreting what's going on out there in reality to what's going on your canvas. So whenever you have the chance to paint from life, even in the wintertime, go ahead and do it. But the best thing for landscape painters is to get outside and paint. All right, enough of me talking. Let's get into part one. All right, bye-bye. Hello and welcome to part one of a three-part series titled Canadian Cabin. So here we go. So I am painting on, it looks like a 12/16. And with that, so I've got a nice blank white canvas, and I want to go over the fact that I've got a nice clean palette today. That's wonderful. I cleaned it up with stripper or this kind of stuff, so it's really looking nice today. But I probably don't have everything out that I'm going to use, but for purposes today, I probably have enough. And that is my blue. I just got two blues, one red. It looks like I'm missing cad red, but I'm certainly strong with my yellows, yellow ochre, orange, bismuth yellows, I think right here. Not bismuth, I'm sorry. This is, what is this stuff? Hansa yellows, and then a Hansa yellow medium. Transparent oxide red, transparent brown. Gray, cold gray by Remington, and which is a really nice gray, number 717, and my whites, titanium white down here. I have my trusty mixing stuff here. I've got my good old T7 and my connoisseur, and my good scraping tools and all my brushes. I'm going to start with a drawing brush. In this case, I went for a Rosemary Classic Long Flat number 2. It's something I can make lines on. What I want to do in the next 30 minutes is to figure out where these shapes are going to be and fill in with some sort of a thin mixture of value colors. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. So let's make a blue, transparent oxide red, and we'll just thin it down instead of putting white in it. So I've got some Gamsol solvent that I'm going to be using, and I'm just thinning out my stuff here. I'm looking at the reference, and I see that there's a cabin up in this area and a path to it with trees, mountains behind. It's just a classic little composition. So when I look at the reference, I see that the cabin is just maybe a little bit above center, and I see a path coming out of it to the left, a little white path there of the front door, and I made that as the mark. I think the center of the canvas is about approximately right here, and I'm going to say from there there's going to be some trees here and here. And there's going to be some other big trees here in this area. So I've just got some rough ideas here. I think I'm a little bit centered or maybe a little bit below center for that path coming out the front door. So I think I'm going to say that I think my cabin is about the same as this stand of trees. Let me double check on my reference. So I have a cabin, and it's a little smaller. So I'm going to say cabin's going to end up here, and looks like there's different levels to this cabin. And looks like front door is in here somewhere. Lots of windows, that's what I like about this cabin. It's got lights. Looks like an older cabin, and it's kind of neat. And kind of goes in like this and then up. It's kind of got a wonky roof. And it looks like a different level of roof in a few places too. So I'll make this the level, and then there's another level of the roof right here. Let me get back and see if I'm investing in the right spot. And so far, so good. Okay. So down here, there's path. So I think basically we have, if this is front door, path comes out here. And then I'm not drawing lines so much as kind of smudges. And I think here too we have bushes that hide a lot of the cabin, even more than what I have. They almost touch here in a few places. And there's a pine tree right in here. So you can kind of see how I'm using the side of this brush. I'm kind of scrubbing with it and kind of getting some dark values in places, and I'm just turning, as you can see from the overhead, I just kind of come in here and fill up all sides of the brush. I'm going to go double check my cameras and everything is recording appropriately. Now I know over here there's a lot of dark in the cabin, so I might as well get some of that, and I think there's a good dark underneath here too. You say, boy, I am sure spending a lot of time on this cabin. Well, yes and no, it's important. And now I have more bushes. Okay, I'm going to go back to more blue, more transparent oxide red, more blue. And let's get a little bit more specific on some trees. I see trees coming around this guy that are pretty important to the accenting the cabin. Over here it's not so, they're farther back. But the ones up front are pretty dark. So I'm getting some blue, brown. So I just went to the transparent oxide brown to even make a darker mixture. And I think there's another big fella over in here. It's a little taller. and maybe some smaller guys over here. These darks from these trees kind of come clear over to the edge of the path. And there's some more dark designs in the folding of the mountain, of the bushes as they kind of show. There's a clump here and then there's a clump in front. There's a big dark right up in front. And I should be using a bigger brush for that. Let me go back to trees on the opposite side. And these darks come down in here. Sure, there's a lot of green in this painting. I'm thinking of maybe brightening up the bushes in the front with some worms. I think there's some smaller trees back in here. And then there seems to be a break in the darks. And there's some lighter stuff in the background. But there's some honkin' darks over this way. They come down a little bit farther. And these darks come down a little farther. And this is starting to give me some idea of what's going on in the front of this painting. I probably have to spend a little bit more time over here to get these darks right. And I know in the center it's a little lighter, so I'm adding some Gamsol to my brush and filling it in here. Some Gamsol, and I'm going to thin that out with that. And continue with this more of a dark right here. Now you see why I wear out my brushes so much using the side of this. All right, so I'm still composing my composition or my design. My skeleton might be another way to put it. So let's figure out where else we can put these darks. And I see some darks over in here. Oh, I better make sure my canvas is secure. There we go. All right, let's figure out where these mountains are going to be. Let's add more blue. I'm thinning out the mixture with Gamsol. And I see a big line coming over here. Looks like a kind of a more of a bluey mountain right in here. Let me just try to emulate some of that. What I'm going to do is to even that out. Those brush strokes I just put in that diagonal mountain back there. So I'm adding a little terp to a paper towel. All right, Gamsol. And you can see it lightens it up. Okay. Let me get a little bit in here. Sorry to have my hand in front. But sometimes I just have to reach over and get these things done. And I think we have some in here too. Okay, that takes care of that. I gotta check my furnace here. Wow, this thing is really good. I'm gonna turn this down. I have electric baseboard heat here in the studio. And I also have an old wood burning stove here. It's just an old firebox, which I just really love at this time of year. It's so cold out here, and you can just, instead of waiting for the electricity heat to warm up, you get that thing going. Things are really working nice on that. I'm adding just a little bit of white to the mixture, just a little bit. And I see mountain range right up here. This Canadian cabin, I took a image of it some years back when my wife and I, Jenny and I, drove up to the Canadian parks. So I want this to be even thinner and lighter. As you can see, I've got kind of a value painting going on here first. And I think this kind of goes across this way. Sorry for the side of my face in here. And I see a dark up in there. And a dark right up in there. All right, so we've got some of our cools, and here it's time, I think we started working on some other parts of the painting down in this lower section. And if I don't completely cover up all my white canvas, I'll do that off camera, and basically I'll show you the mixtures that I'm going to be doing with all that stuff. Okay, so let's make some sort of a warm green. So let's go with some yellow ochre. I'm going to get a little bit of Meridian in there, and a little bit of ultra blue. And it's kind of a warm green. I just wanted to kind of warm this stuff up a little bit. So I'm going to switch over to a Da Vinci number 6, a little bit bigger. And when I used it last, I had some phthalo blue, and that can really stain a new brush, which looks like it did, but I think it's pretty much dried in there. So now I'm just going to come in here and fill in some of these areas of white canvas. Again, I'm just using a pretty sloppy mixture. It's thin. And let's get up here and do it too. And you see, those trees are awfully dark for being pine trees. Well, that's, when I block in, I get the darkest part of the block in the tree. So that's the darkest part you see. And some of that will remain in the final painting. But if you don't get the darks in, you're kind of fighting it for later. All right, and I think we have some up in here. You can see how I'm squeezing out some of the, I think we actually even lose some of the path here. There's nothing more discouraging to me when I make a too obvious path. You know, let the viewer figure some of this out themselves. And what I'm doing is now slopping up my brush and reestablishing some darks wherever I see them, and I'm covering up some of my whites as I go. now we have a different configuration down here for the path. We have multicolor stuff in there. And let's see if I can do something using this brush. So I'm really trying to clean it with some Gamsol and get that cleaned up. Let me step back and see where I'm at and get a perspective. I always think getting back and getting a perspective is extremely important. I think I've got about 12 minutes left. I'm thinking I'm doing okay time-wise, and I just want to check my shapes. I think things are kind of pretty well placed. And let me get a new paper towel. Get my stuff in the right place. Just kind of fold it this way. And this stuff is pretty much gone that I have here. But I might have some slop dark there, so I'll try to save some of that. And clean my nice, clean white palette. You can see I'm really trying to control my palette, which I really encourage you all to do, is not to, save everything and work in smaller and smaller spaces for mixtures. Try to move it off to the side. Okay, let's get some Hansa yellow, white, transparent oxide brown, Hansa yellow, that's Hansa yellow deep. And we have a nice warm mixture, and it's thoroughly mixed. Alrighty, so let's go back to my big number 6 Da Vinci. And you can see here, I mixed it in such a way that it does show up. The value of it shows up in comparison to the surrounding mixtures. Now I know there's a two-tone in here, and I'll add that later. I just want to try to get a basic value here in some of my lights. And I'm softening my edges in a few places by just lifting it up. I'm going to go back to that greeny gray stuff we just made. Throw a little bit of iridium in it, a little bit of yellow ochre in it. And I'm going to be putting that in here because it's kind of two-tone down in this area. And I'm adding more transparent oxide red. Got to lighten it up. Lighten. And that should take care of this lower area for now. And I'll even put some up in the... All right. Looks like it's time for sky. Don't know if I have my phthalos out. I might put a phthalo up there. The reference, if you can see it, it's not that bright. It's kind of just a blobby white, which cameras do not do a good job in describing what's going on with your lights, or even in your darks. So it gives me the privilege of trying to figure out what would work best for this painting. So let's start with some white. I'm using my old T7 mixing palette knife. And let me see if I've got some phthalo around here. Phthalo blue, green, let's see here. Put that right here. Well, you don't need much of this stuff. And let's see what that comes up with. See, I cautiously moved it into the side. If you plop it right in there, you might have to be mixing more and more white till you get what you want. And I'm going to add some Viridian down here. Or white. So I'm going to put Viridian down here on the lower part and phthalo up on top. And I might be changing brushes here because it's going to be hard to get that stuff out of my brushes without contaminating this nice pure mixture up there. So let me stay on top of my brushes and clean my old number 6. And let me go in with a, let's see, a number 6 long flat rosemary. So let's get a little terp in there. And I'm going into the Viridian first to keep my really good lights on the bottom. So, looking at my time, got a few minutes left. What I'm going to be doing off camera is trying to cover up all these little white speckles coming through. Okay. And if I have a few minutes, we'll get into the red roof of the Canadian cabin. When I first went to the Canadian Rockies, some 20 years ago, I did it on a bicycle. We rode through it, my cousin and I. Yeah, we were cross-country bicyclists. And I said, boy, these mountains. I thought we had great mountains in Colorado and Wyoming. But boy, when I went up there, they said they really have a different personality of mountain. It's huge. And it seems like, because the road goes right through the center of some of these Canadian parks, it rises up so much from where you're standing, where in Colorado you're already up a mile high before you even look at a mountain. And it's really, really quite different. There you go. So there's the sky. And I'm going to clean this brush, and I have a minute or two. Let's see what I can do with that red roof. So, you don't want to say red, so that's why I have the alizarin out instead of the Cad Red Light. Just going to add a touch of green to it to gray it down. So that was just a touch of Viridian. And let me add a little bit of white to it. White. White. And here we go. Okay, there you go. So a lot of times when, I give these assignments to you, make it easy on yourself to fill in the white spots. Sometimes all you need to do is get a little bit of terp on the side of your brush or Gamsol and just use your surrounding color to cover up those whites. I mean, don't lose all of your nice darks. And to eliminate that, you can go in with your, I have some of that slop dark left, and just go in with it and get that done. But surrounding colors can really help. Like, see these little guys down here? Just smudge it a little bit. but try to cover up your white canvas, and that's what you'll be doing for homework. And I'll get some of that done here in the next few minutes, and then start editing this and get it up on the internet. All right, folks, thank you so much for coming by for part 1 of Canadian Cabin. So, see you in part 2.